Hey guys, so this is probably the most dangerous bit of arts and crafts I've ever done, and here we have my tick list basically for the Victoria Shield Sovereigns. So I've picked up four more here today, and there are some that you might notice are ticked and crossed, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. So this you'll notice is a Sydney minted Shield Sovereign. It's got a very nice sort of original finish still visible there. You can see the kind of luster. And yeah, you'll notice that most of the dates are ticked off, but not all of them. So this one is an 1878, and we have again some good detail there. So looking into the hair and around the date, around the neck, and it looks generally pretty good. What you might find in some of the more worn ones is just above the ear there, a big sort of flat, smooth patch. And anyway, this one is pretty good, so we'll add that in there. We also have three more to show you today. This one is 1847, so pretty old. This one of the older ones I have. See, my first one is 1842, then we have an 1845, and now this 1847. So I was able to pick these up at a little bit of a premium. Nothing too crazy, but for the condition I was happy to pick this one up. This one is going to be London minted because we hadn't yet started minting in Sydney at the time. So again, you can see some very nice detail. On this side you want to look more towards the lion's faces, and you can see where on the crown, and also generally throughout the coin if it's a more worn example, but this one just looking pretty good condition. So we'll pop that one into here. We have two more. We have an 1885. This one again has some quite nice luster on it, quite a nice bit of original finish, and again good detail. So this one is, I believe, a Sydney Sovereign. Yes, it is. I'll pop that into there, and then the final one for today is the 1883. So what I found interesting is up until recently I had none of the later dates. I had the 1879, but I had none of the 80s through to 87, and I also had just one or two of the 70s, but not many. So I think 1871 is a quite common year. I've got quite a few duplicates of that. And 1872, again, I have quite a few duplicates there as well. So yeah, it's nice to tick off a few of these later years. You'll notice there's a few ticked off which aren't here on the video, so you'll have to wait for another video, I'm afraid, to see those. Another popular year I think is 1853. I have quite a lot of those. And then I think you tend to see quite a lot of the 50s and 60s. They came before I was even really paying attention to the dates. I was just buying, when there was a lot of Shield Sovereigns, I was just taking, some nice quality ones, or just asking for whatever I could get, really. I wasn't really paying attention to the dates. But now I'm paying a bit more attention. I think the 1870s is perhaps one that's a bit less common. Again, the 1880s, they seem to be a bit less common, but recently I have just come across quite a few. Obviously, the earlier years, whilst they are around, you do see them regularly. They are at a quite hefty premium, so especially those first couple of years, those first 3 years that were minted, you're going to be looking at quite a bit of premium over, especially over a normal bullion sovereign, but even over a lot of other Shield Sovereigns. So some of my better condition ones are pretty good, nice examples, and potentially some people would consider grading them. I'm not sure myself. I don't plan to grade any of these that I have, but a lot of them have just come from, like I say, not necessarily choosing particular dates, just going for the Shield Sovereigns. Now I do have some more worn ones, but here I've just got one example of each year to show you. Some of the more worn ones, I would eventually, if I got a date that was better than a worn one, I would obviously swap it out. I think the 1845 is quite a worn one. Let's just have a closer look. So it's not terrible, actually. The wear isn't too bad. I think it's just perhaps being cleaned at some point. You see it looks a little bit more shiny. If I twist it there. It's potentially been lightly cleaned. You know, it's not heavily scratched or anything. It's not like, you know, a scrap coin by any means. But if I got a nicer example of, I suppose, any of the years, you know, I would look to trade them out. So always worth looking at the rim as well, making sure they're not like really worn smooth, because that could be evidence of it being mounted. So something to look out for there. And yeah, in terms of the date run, I am slowly making my way through. Like, I'm not, you know, searching out, I'm going to pay high premiums just to rush through it. I think there's 18 dates that are remaining, but a couple of these I saw come up just at very, very good prices and thought, well, I would have bought them anyway. You know, even if they were dates I already had, they were such good prices. So the X'd out dates here are dates that weren't available, so they weren't minted, and therefore saves me a bit of money, I suppose. From 1871 through to 1887, there were also the Victoria sovereigns with the Georgian dragon design. So they weren't actually shields, they were Georgian dragon as well. So some of the mintages for these later coins, when you look at the mintage figure, it includes the Sydney shields and also the Georgian dragon, for example. So you can't necessarily tell how many were of which one. In that sense, you know, maybe the mintages are a bit lower than people think. Maybe you've seen some information somewhere. If you have, then obviously let me know. Please share and I'll take a look. And yeah, otherwise, like I say, I'm happy to keep picking these up. They are one of my favourite types of sovereigns. Doing the date run, is it going to be, you know, the best economic decision ever? Well, maybe not. It depends on the exit strategy. You know, if I can find a collector to feed out the, you know, ones I've paid a premium for, and you know, sell them eventually, rather than going to just your average high street dealer or online dealer, they're not going to pay the higher premiums for the coins, I wouldn't have thought, because obviously they've got to sit on them for a while and make their margin. So I wouldn't be surprised if dealers were offering the same price as these if they were buying in as just a normal, you know, bullion sovereign. Some will pay a premium for nicer examples, you know, but you are going to struggle to get your money back, I suppose, going to dealers. I think the best option, like I say, is selling peer-to-peer to collectors. And so a lot of these I've just bought at best value prices, and like I think the cheapest ones in here are less than the current melt price for a sovereign. So, you know, it does put my average quite low. Some of the more recent ones, though, like I say, I have paid a little bit more premium, over the £400 mark. And obviously that is higher than the current scrap price for a bullion coin. And so, yeah, I would like to, if I was going to get the money back on those coins, I would like to find collectors and obviously sell to them. But I'm not intending to sell anytime soon for these especially. Some of the duplicate dates I've got, I could use perhaps as swap offers. So if people have the missing dates, then, you know, they might be after the dates that I have in spares, and therefore, you know, you can get trading and swapping. So that could be a good option for people who are considering doing similar. The other option, I suppose, is just buying such good coins that it's worth consigning to an auction, and maybe you can put together something like the Bentley collection of yourself, you know, over time. Maybe it's not impossible, you never know, and that could be another option. But like I say, you're always going to have fees to incur if you're using some of these options to sell. Peer-to-peer is obviously, there's pros and cons to that. You've got to take into consideration your security, but and obviously safety. But, you know, if you do know other collectors and you can trade between yourselves, then that could be quite a good option to work with. So hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you are collecting shield sovereigns, or if you're collecting other sovereigns, or any other coins in particular. You know, are you working on a date run, or have you got some other completely random plan, maybe collecting certain years or from certain countries? I'm keen to hear, and let's talk in the comments.